friends, Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. You'll actually probably hear me say that a couple of more times in this video because this video is kind of an afterthought. I decided to put all this together after something occurred here in the shop. And what occurred was two Rosa mandolins that I built came back to the shop. As a matter of fact, I think they were both built on film. So I'll put a reference to those numbers on the screen so you can go back and look at those videos if you'd like of how I built those mandolins. But the Thomas mandolin and the Almost Heaven mandolin were back in the shop here about a week apart, and both of them for just some tweaking. The Almost Heaven mandolin, the customer was really looking for a lower action than what I provided. He really wanted it low, so we set her up just as low as we could get her. And the Thomas mandolin, it's been 3.5 years, and he just wanted kind of a checkup, you know, and so we went through that and cleaned it up a little bit and worked on the finish and a couple of different things on that one. That gave me the opportunity to play those two mandolins again on camera, and so I got to thinking, why not just compare all of the Rosa mandolins that I have in my possession with those and, you know, just play them all on camera and tell a little story about each and every one of them. So that's what we're going to do. Hello friends, Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. I have a mandolin here in the shop that you'll probably recognize. Yes, it's the Almost Heaven mandolin. I guess it didn't like heaven too much and decided to come back home. No, the customer, he felt like the action was high on it. You know, I set them up like I set them up typically, and it didn't seem high to me, but everybody's different. He's really looking for very low action, and he feels like, I think he feels like this is about where it should be. All I did was take it out of the case. I haven't really done anything except check the tuning. Here's a 8 thousandths feeler gauge. I don't know if you can see the numbers on that the way the glare is, but anyway, it's an 8 thousandths. Hard to read. And even the 8 thousandths really doesn't go under the first fret right now, and that's low, I think. 8 thousandths is really low. Here's 8 thousandths, and that's lifting the strings on the G. Here's 5 thousandths. That goes right in there. So it's really at 5 thousandths now, and that's obviously way too low. You just can't play them at that low. It's impossible. The string's going to vibrate more than that. And so on this side it's a little bit higher. It might be a hair more than 8, it might be 10. So it's probably fine on this side, but this side's definitely too low. Back here further, it's really low. This pick here is only 34 thousandths, as you can see. That is very thin, and at the 7th fret, that's lifting the strings. The pick that I typically gauge at the 7th fret is a 1.14 millimeter, which is 40-some thousandths. I'm looking for that pick right now. And at the 7th fret, obviously that's going to lift it up a lot. And you know, a pick is, even though that's, you know, a thicker pick, it's still very thin. I mean, it's 46 thousandths according to that, 46 thousandths. So that's very thin. And at the 7th fret, that's typically how I set it, a tight 46 thousandths. But it's quite a bit less than that. As a matter of fact, it's actually less than that even here at the 12th fret. It's lifting the strings at the 12th fret. So in my opinion, you just can't play him that low. I'm not saying he's not right. I'm just saying this is just too low. His Gibson may be almost this low, but I don't think it's this low. And it's even lifting the E string with this 45 or 46 thousandths. Bottom line is, I'm gonna re-level, re-crown the frets, set it up as low as I can get it to play well. That'll be the best I can do. I'm leveling the frets on this. I can tell the frets are pretty darn level. I don't feel anything at all. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's not far out of level. It's pretty darn close. I can tell just literally by laying the file on there. You can either feel it drag or it doesn't drag, and it's not dragging anywhere. I may have to make a new nut for it because I don't think I can get the frets low enough now to make it work. It's definitely not out of level. It's really flat. Matter of fact, looking down it, you can just tell it's perfectly flat. Here's a straight edge. It's just as flat as a pancake. We'll go ahead and clean it up a little bit and put the strings back on it, set the action. I think it's going to be fine. Off camera, I did a little more work to it. I've got just, made sure that they're absolutely perfectly level since he sent it back to me, but they really weren't out of level. They were very, very level. I was going to try to restring it with that nut, and it's just not going to work. It's going to catch on this first fret, so I'm just going to have to make a new nut for it. I'll show you what that looks like once we get the new nut made. Well, friends, it was a tough fight, but I think the almost heaven mandolin has made its way back to heaven, or at least it's on its way back to heaven. Yeah, I did make a new nut for it. I've got the action set really good right here. It's about 14 thousandths right here, which in his letter, he wanted 15 thousandths, so I got it at 14. And I've got the G side at 55, and I've got the other side around 40. It even holds a pick. Now that's at the 12th fret. So it holds this is a 45 thousandths, and you can see quite clearly that it easily holds the pick at the 12th fret. Sounds really good. So let's see what she sounds like. Got a lot of punch, really clear. Can't get one to play much easier than that in my opinion. Yeah, I probably should have just set it up lower when I sent it to him the first time. I set it up kind of my standard, which is a little bit higher than this. Not a lot higher, but apparently he's, into the real low action. So I want to make him happy. I hope he's can enjoy it this way. It's every bit as low as he asked for, and it doesn't seem to buzz at all, so I hope he's satisfied with it. Put this thing back on its trip to heaven, so thanks for watching. Well, if I did any more of that tune, I'd be charged with piracy or something and go to YouTube jail and Amazon and Google and all the rest of the online community would come after me with knives. So, there you go. That's how much you get. we have another Rosa mandolin in for a checkup. It's in pretty darn good shape if you ask me. Sounds really darn good. The customer has two major concerns. He's concerned there's a little bit of an underbow on the treble side, and he's right. I will openly admit that there is a teeny bit of underbow here. It's not very much, but there is some there. And the top, he's concerned about the finish on the top. Well, it is cracking, but that nitrocellulose lacquer does crack, and I don't put a lot on there. I keep it as thin as I can keep it because that helps the sound. You know, if you do like Gibson does and put that heavy finish on them, if the sound ever does come around, it takes 40 years, you know, before it starts to sound good. And I don't put a ton of finish on them. I'll openly admit that. But I think it's closer to what Martin does. They don't put a ton of finish on theirs either, you know. But this nitrocellulose lacquer does crack like that with the grain lines and stuff. It just does. It's the nature of that type of finish. There's not much you can do about it. We will polish out the finish for him. He asked if it needs to be refinished. I don't think it needs to be refinished at all. It does have a few scars in it. There's a little chip in there right there. And there's a little scratch chippy thing right up in here. We'll see if we can touch all that up and make it look a little better for him since we've got it here in the shop. It looks like he's moved the bridge around a little bit and there's some bridge markings there and stuff, but we'll just kind of buff out the finish. We'll do a good fret leveling and everything and try to remove some of that little underbow there. I don't know what the thousandths would be on that underbow, but it wouldn't be much, I can tell you that. It's probably no more than 3 or 4 thousandths. But he's got a good eye because he can see it, you know, and I can see it too. But you gotta be trained to see that, you know what I mean? Not everybody can see that. Looks really pretty. This was the red one. This is the Thomas mandolin that you saw maybe in some of my early videos. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago now. Well, as a matter of fact, why am I guessing? We can look at the label and see when it was made. September 11th, that's that infamous day, but it was 2015. So here it's 2019, it'll soon be 4 years. So it's about a 3.5 year checkup here. As I'm talking, I can hear the mandolin ringing. I mean, I can actually hear it. I don't know if it's coming across. Check, test. I don't know if you can hear that echo ring and stuff, but it keeps ringing as I'm talking to you. Anyway, otherwise it looks perfectly fine to me, but we will try to address his concerns and make them better if we can. Well, you can see I've stripped her down and we've got the tailpiece off of it even. I've got on order a couple of more tubes of the semi-chrome polish. I think I've got enough here to last me several more instruments before I really run out, but I am getting low. Scratches right through here where the bridge was. We might have to do more than hand polish those. I don't know, but we'll see. Well, I was just looking at this, and these scratches are not going to come out of there very well. I don't know what's caused those scratches. They're going this way. The only thing I can think of that might have caused those scratches going this way was that he must have been trying to sand the bridge down some more. I don't know, but they're definitely going down. I mean, there is definitely a lot of scratches there, and they're definitely going this way, where normally moving the bridge back and forth, your scratches would be going this way. So anyway, bottom line is we can fix a lot of that, make it look better. And I just want to be clear, when I say I don't put a lot of finish on there, I do mean that, but I just want you to understand that there's plenty of finish on the instrument. There's plenty of finish on there to resand it and repolish it and all that, so there's no problem there. I've got some 600 wet or dry, got some warm soapy water here off camera. And I'm just going to soak this down a little bit, and we're just going to get in here and clean this up. To address his concern about refinishing, if it were my instrument, the last thing I would want to do would be refinish it. But, you know, everybody's different, but I would much prefer just polish it out like this. It looks to me like the feet on the bridge have been taken down quite a bit more, is what it looks like. And they even look you know, angled, beveled. I don't think that's my work that I can see there. At least it doesn't look like it to me. I don't know. We'll may have to work on the feet of that bridge too, because it doesn't look real flat to me anymore. I'll just go ahead and polish, you know, sand through these places where there's this scratch right here and see if we can't, you know, get rid of some of it. It's not going to all go away, I can tell. Here's some 1200. Now I'll see if I've got some 2000 or something like that. We'll go over it and then we'll polish it out. Now we'll try the semi-chrome polish and see if we can make it look better again. It looks really good. I can still see a little bit of scratching going this way. So we'll try a little bit more in that area there. We got the 2000 and we'll just go back over that area a little bit more. I finished sanding that with 2000 and it looks really good to me. Before I go buffing it though, I thought I better address these feet. It's leaning forward like this. He's got it marked for the east side and I've got the right side the right way. I turned this around because I was trying to see if it would fit the other way, but it doesn't. So this is the east side that he had marked, but it leans forward automatically and you never want that with a bridge. So I'm going to re-sand this. So I'm going to put a fresh piece of 220 on here and I'm going to purposely hold back on this as I'm sanding it to lean it back the other way. Well, the phone just rang and that was Thomas checking up on his mandolin. And I told him what we're doing to it here and told him I wasn't going to refinish it, but I am working on the finish and I'm trying to make it as good as we can make it. That's starting to look much better already. It's about square. It's not quite leaning back yet, which is where I would prefer to have it, just a little bit of a back lean, because you don't want a forward lean. That's the worst you can have right there. 220 sandpaper does a good job. Now that's sitting there pretty darn good now. It's got a little back lean to it again. That's about as good as you can get it. It's sitting there pretty darn flat. Maybe just a hair on this toe over here on this side. That looks really good. I'm going to knock off these sharp corners so that they don't create any marks on the top. It just takes a very fine little bevel. It doesn't take much at all. That way you don't feel anything sharp. It sits there now without any problem and it's got just the slightest bit lean back, which is what you want because it always pulls forward, always. And it fits the top better now. I don't see any airspace under there. So we're good there. I think also before I buff this out, I'll go ahead and work on the frets. Now this has the radius fingerboard in it, which is what he wanted, of course. As you already probably know, I'm not a real big fan of that, but you know, everybody likes something different, so there you go. So now you just have to keep that in mind, and you know, you rock this thing as you're going across here. You don't just you just don't file it flat, obviously. I can tell it's really flat, really, because I'm not feeling any pull at all. To take out a little bit of this underbow that's in here, I'm going to file a little heavier on the back here and a little heavier on the front here on just the treble side. That looks real nice. We'll re-crown those. Alright, now that I've gone this deep into it, I'm going to go ahead and sand out a little bit more of this. Some of these finish cracks are showing a little more than they might, and if I sand it a little bit more, I think they'll go away a little bit more. You know, I want it to look as nice for him, and I want him to be happy, and you know, it's got a great sound. It's a really good sounding mandolin. Well, I'm just buffing this, or I'm wiping this off now after sanding it. It really does look nice, I think, again. I would say 99% of the sanding marks that way are pretty much gone. So let's see if we can't buff it out now with, you know, I could take it to the buffer. The buffer is good, but on a mandolin, the buffer, you know, it can catch on these F-holes and stuff, and you know, you could really end up causing a major problem if you're not careful. I've never have done that, but it could happen, you know. So why take the risk? It just takes 5 minutes longer probably to do it this way than it would with the buffing wheel. And even this, you gotta be a little bit careful. If you push too hard, you can crack this too, you know. I do have those reinforced, but you still have to be careful. All right, we'll take a nice fresh towel and try to buff that off. See what that looks like. We might have to do it again. That's looking pretty good. I think I'll just go over it one more time. And wow, that's looking good now. That's really looking pretty nice. I don't think I could get it a whole lot better than that. You know, you can still see the finish cracks, you know, if you have it at the right angle, but they're not bad. And those finish cracks, like I said, they're just part of it. The kind of finish I use, the nitrocellulose lacquer, it just does that. And every instrument I've built, I would imagine, does that a little bit. But in my opinion, that finish is also part of the reason it sounds good. So I stick with it. A lot of people send me information about different finishes, but you know, I don't know that they've been proven that how they sound, you know. So I'm a little leery to try them, because after you spend the amount of work on an instrument like this, you know, it's an experiment to try a different finish on it. I can tell you that for sure. And I know this works, so I typically stick with what works. Well, let's go ahead and put some Renaissance wax on there and see what that does to it. I also like to rub the wax in, because even waxes have a little bit of an abrasive factor, and that, you know, just makes it polish up even that much more, you know. So if you can wipe it on, wipe it off, but if you really polish it in, it does a little bit better job. At the time I built this mandolin, I don't think I was using the Renaissance wax, so it's good to put this on there. My guess is that this will even make it sound just that much better, because having a good, hard, crisp finish really helps the sound. Well, there you go. That looks pretty darn good to me. Hope it looks good to you. You can still see his little mark down here that he's got, but not too bad. And this one up here. This one here, it's kind of discolored. If we could, I don't know if we can, just trying to get the, you know, cleaned out there. I have a feeling that touching it with a little Sharpie, you know, just very lightly will make this one almost completely go away. Yeah, you can barely even see it at all now. Touch it one more time. Yeah, that helped that one up there quite a bit. You can barely see it at all now. If you get it in the right light, you can see it, but it ain't bad. This one here might benefit the same way. It's still down in the dark enough spot there that I think the black will work. I'll go ahead and put a little wax over that, see if that helps that too. You can still see it a little tiny bit there, but not bad. I think you can see that improved it a lot. You know, if you turn it on the colored where you don't see the shine across it, you don't hardly see it at all. if you look across it, you can see it, where the shine goes across it there. But it's pretty invisible now. I think he'll be happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and polish up these frets with some 600 grit sandpaper and make them look better. Got a straight edge here, and I have my taper gauge, and it goes down to just under 10/1000ths of an inch, and it won't go through there. So it won't go through there anywhere. And if you watched my last video on the tater bug mandolin, or the, I think I called it the chili dipper mandolin, you'll notice that this did go under there and it went up to about 15/1000ths. So there is nothing here, and it's perfectly flat, really. It may look optically like there's an underbow there, but really there's really nothing there. Okay, I have polished these frets up with 600 real nice. They're shiny. Of course, that creates a little dullness on the fretboard itself, which needs to be cleaned anyway. So I never worry about that. And we'll go back across the fretboard now and clean that up. And then I think we're done. And once again, this is a radius fretboard, so you can see I am radiusing the tool. I'm not keeping it flat. Okay, we've got her all polished up, cleaned up there. It's looking really fine. I guess the only thing left to do is oil the fretboard, put it back together. Well, I had another one of those senior moments where I was just talking to the camera and you weren't paying attention because I didn't have it turned on. But I waxed the whole back too, just so you know, off camera. I did that now, off camera, because I didn't turn it on. But anyway, we got her all in perfect setup. The intonation is great. Let's play it and see what it sounds like. Once again, I have to stop, otherwise I get thrown in jail. Well, hope you like it. And I think you can see there that the top looks almost brand new. Not perfectly brand new because of those finish cracks, but they're just going to be there, you know. And the back looks real good and polished out. I wiped it down in other places too. I didn't really do much there as far as waxing and things go, but I did clean it up. And fretboard is just like brand new again. Oh, by the way, the action, I didn't tell you about the action. The action is so low, it's incredible. I mean, here's my pick at the 12th fret. You know, if you can't get them much lower than that, guys. I know a lot of people think they can, but that's pretty darn low. That's the 12th fret. So if that's not low enough for you, I don't know how to help you. Thanks for watching, friends. Tell your friends about it. You can own a $6,000 Rosa mandolin. Just give me a call and we'll work out something. Thank you very much. We're going to start off with my daily player. This is the one that I play all the time right now. It's made from a sycamore tree that I cut down right here on the farm. As a matter of fact, if you walk out this door to my right here and walk about 600 yards down there on the left, that's where the tree was. So, and it's, you know, I don't have any finish on the neck on this one. Very slick for playing daily. That's the way I like it. Not the prettiest one I've built by any stretch. It's funny about the sycamore, it takes finish weird. It really looks pretty. It would probably be better to just finish it natural because the grain kind of goes away when you put finish on it in stain, unfortunately, because I was actually, one of these, I think, well, it's another one I'll show you later. I was going to call it the rattlesnake and the rose bush because, you know, because of the rose emblem and then the pattern on the back of that sycamore just looked like a rattlesnake back to me. But anyway, this is my daily player. You can see that this one has the vine and the standard rows and all that. Let me tell you the serial number and the date on this one. The date is March 8th, 2013, it looks like. And the serial number is 37I, which means the 37th instrument I built. The 29th mandolin. So that's what this one is. Let's just play, we're going to play the same, what it is the intro to the Redwood Hills tune is really what we're playing here. It's just how I would kick it off if I was on stage. Actually, I split it with a banjo, but I'll just play the whole thing on each mandolin, and that way you'll have a good comparison. Okay, I'm going to tune every mandolin with the same little tuner here, just so there's no difference, although I don't really hear any difference or see any difference on these different tuners anyway. I find that they're all pretty darn accurate and pretty darn similar. I just thought I might point out a couple more things. This one has the James tailpiece. When they made this one for me, they didn't put the Rosa, they just put Rosa. So I decided, well, I'll just put that on my own mandolin rather than, I won't sell that one, unfortunately. But anyway, up here, I've got the Rosa, and that's kind of what the tailpiece normally matches. This does have the Waverly tuning keys on this one. So this is my daily player. Here we go. Okay, that's my daily player. We'll go to the next one. Okay, and this is a much older mandolin. This is the second mandolin that I built. My son has the first one, and we're going to borrow it and put that in this video as well, just so you know. This one has the Allen style tailpiece here. I'm not sure if I got this directly from Allen or if I got this one from Stu Mac. I don't remember because they sold them at one time. It's got a different set of tuning keys on this. Like I said, this is much older. I don't remember which tuning keys these are, to be perfectly honest with you. I would say they're the Goto or something like that, but I don't really remember. This one is made with the bird's eye maple back. This has, of all things, has a redwood top. This was the first two mandolins I built were built specifically directly right out of the Semenoff book. And so this was, definitely out of his first book that he put out on building F5 style mandolins. The interesting thing about this mandolin is, well, when I first built it, it was probably the loudest mandolin I've ever heard in my life. Actually, there's been an exception since then, because I did hear one mandolin that was louder than this one. But otherwise, it was the loudest mandolin that I had ever heard, at least up to that point. The other interesting thing about it is that this redwood top, it was fine. I had it in this road case that I built. As a matter of fact, let me just show you the road case. I had it in this road case that I built, and this carries two mandolins, as you can see. Has a post in here to keep the top from collapsing. And believe it or not, my wife was trying to help me out, and she backed over this case with the car. She was helping me get ready to go to a festival, and the mandolin was sitting behind the car, and she didn't realize it. Backed over it. So it broke this mandolin in 7 places down the top. Now, it cracked it. It just cracked it. And I took it apart, repaired it, and you couldn't tell it at all. I mean, there was no visible crack at all after I repaired it. It wasn't quite as loud for whatever reason, but it was still very loud. Would you not know, about a week after I repaired it, it was in the case, the lid fell shut, and there was, I think, a tuner sitting here or something, and it cracked it again right there. I didn't take it apart and fix it that time. I just left the crack. I thought, I guess it's meant to be cracked. I don't know. But this, give you the serial number on this one. This was before I got so elaborate with my serial numbers. This was my third instrument, second mandolin. Yeah, I had built a guitar in between the two mandolins, I think is what it was. And this was built back in 1986. I remember that. Yeah, March 30th, 1986. Today is March 27th, so that's pretty weird. It's just 3 days off of its birthday. A little bit dusty, but it's been sitting in the case. Very good, very good mandolin. Because it's my second one that I built, I'll probably always keep it. I don't know why I don't play it all the time. It's got such a wonderful sound. Show you what the next one looks like. This mandolin has a little different look to it, lighter color and different look to it, but it's basically the same kind of thing. Has the old Allen tailpiece. This was my daily player for a long time. I built this one and finished it in a real hurry because I knew my grandson was going to be born very shortly, and so I rushed the finish job on it a little bit, but anyway, I wasn't building it to sell. I was building it to keep in the family. And so the date on this one is May 21st, 09, and that just happens to be my oldest grandson's birthday. And May 21st just happens to be my wife's birthday. So he was born on my wife's birthday. And my daughter, who had that grandson, was born on my birthday, so which was November 28th. So that's pretty cool. This is either the first or the second mandolin that I built out of that sycamore tree. I can't remember if it's the first one or the second one. I'll try to put that information on the screen when I find it out. I've got records on that stuff. This was the 32nd instrument and the 26th mandolin, by the way. Let's play this one and show you what it sounds like. Now keep in mind, all these mandolins have old strings on them. They've all been sitting in the case for no telling how long, and some of them could be several years with the same old strings on them. I really think they all have a very similar sound. Very similar. So I'm real proud of the consistency on the sound of all of them. And it's a pretty nice mandolin, really. It's a nice one. I should be playing it too. Well, this next one I wanted to show you is a little different than all the rest. The reason it's different than all the rest is the size. It may look on camera like it's the same as the rest of them, but it's not at all. This is only a 3/4 size mandolin. It's maybe the only one in the world as far as I know. I couldn't find one when I Googled looking for a 3/4 size F-style mandolin. This was custom built for a little girl who was 7 years old in the area here. And this one, the serial number on it is 28 instrument, 22nd mandolin. And the date on this is February 17th, 2006. The girl and the family played on stage quite a bit and did really well. As a matter of fact, the little girl's sister, older sister, I taught her on the mandolin and got her started, and that's what got their family band going, was when I taught the older sister how to play. And I built her a custom mandolin as well. So the little sister needed a custom mandolin too, and that's what I built this one for. The little sister was small and would probably never be a big person. Anyway, she was a very tiny little girl, and so she needed a much smaller mandolin. Well, this doesn't look all that much smaller until you compare it to the full-size mandolin. And even then, I don't know if you can see it on camera because it's hard to compare, but it's much smaller. It really is. It's only 90% of the size of a full-size one. And I made everything in scale 90% of the full-size one. You know, what I did was I took a ratio of a 3/4 violin to a full-size violin, and that worked out to be about 90% ratio. So that's what I used on this, and the whole thing is built on that. Every fret was cut on that scale, 90% scale. Every single thing I did on it was 90% except the peg head. The peg head is full size because I couldn't get 90% tuning keys. But the peg head's full size. But other than that, everything else is 90%. And of course, you know, the tailpiece and the bridge, I just cut it down. It's a standard bridge, but I just cut it down. Anyway, so here's what this one sounds like. Now, keep in mind, this one doesn't have a deer antler saddle. If it did, it would really wake it up, actually. So I probably should put a deer antler saddle on this. But this, for a little tiny mandolin, and it is tiny, it feels tiny when you're holding it. It's really small. But for a little tiny mandolin, it just plays like you would not believe. Now, it's harder for me to fret it because everything's tighter. The reason I ended up with the mandolin rather than that family is that apparently they hit some sort of financial hardship time in their life and they were selling a lot of their possessions. So I went and bought it back and helped them out, and I would like to have kept it anyway just because it's such a novelty little instrument. So here's what it sounds like, and hopefully I can play this little tiny thing with these great big hands. So here we go. You can hear it ring. See, it's a really good mandolin. There's nothing wrong with this mandolin at all, other than it's just small. I thought I'd just tell you a little side story on this mandolin, a couple of side stories actually. The day I finished it, I took it to a bluegrass festival and to test it out and everything. I wanted to see how it cut through and played and everything. I just figured it was a novelty more or less, you know, and a little kid's instrument, and I just didn't figure it was going to be that impressive, you know, in the jam. It cut through like nobody's business. And I played it the whole evening in the jam. I didn't even switch to a full-size mandolin. I played it the whole evening. I just enjoyed the heck out of playing it. It was great. I was jamming somewhere else, not with this. I was jamming with a regular mandolin at someplace at another festival, a different time. And a guy comes up to me kind of like in a panic. And he's going, "Are you Jerry Rosa?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Can you come with me right now?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess. Well, where are we going? Who are you?" You know, all this kind of thing. He goes, "Rhonda Vincent wants to see you." I go, "Rhonda Vincent wants to see me?" Well, make a long story short. I won't tell you the rest of it. But anyway, the long story short, she wanted one of these custom built for, I think, her niece. And, you know, she did, at least until I told her the price, and then she wasn't too interested after that. But she didn't think they'd be that much. Well, you know, this took more work, and I'm not exaggerating. It took more work to build this than it did to build the full-size one, because I had to hand cut every single fret slot on a 90% scale of a normal one. That's right there is a ton of work. Not to mention I had to make all new forms and everything to make this. So, bottom line is, you know, I've got this one. I guess we'll keep it in the family. If there was a lot of interest in it and somebody really wanted a small one, I might possibly sell it, but I don't know. It'd have to be a good reason, you know, and they'd have to offer me some good money because I'm not going to just give it up. It's a nice mandolin. I got to thinking on this mandolin, the best way to show you how much smaller it is to put it in something like this case. Now here's the standard size case, see, and this is the case we keep it in because we just don't have a custom built case. But you can see how much it moves across there. There's a lot of room here, you know, you can put your hands on both sides. That's how much smaller it is. A full-size mandolin fills this out entirely, you know, so there, I just thought I'd show you that. I thought that would give you a much better comparison. As a matter of fact, I'll put a full-size mandolin in there so you can see the difference. So you can see a full-size mandolin does not move really hardly at all, just a little bit. But it fills it out entirely and you can't get your hands in there. Anyway, that'll give you some idea of the difference in size. Well, we got one last mandolin to show you, and this is the one that started it all. This is number one right here. And first one I built. You know, you can look here and see that it's not real fancy on the carving, you know, and it's okay, it's just not real fancy. It has a western cedar top. It's got a good sound, and it's got bird's eye maple back. It's not exactly book mesh, but it looks like it is, you know. It's just two boards of bird's eye maple that I put together. Bird's eye sides and everything, and then, like I said, western cedar top. And the tuning keys are the old Schaller tuning keys. Those are I bought those, you know, back when I built the mandolin. Now this mandolin, obviously the serial number is 0001. The date on it was May 19th, 1984. So 83 was my son's birthday on that date. I built it on his first birthday. So he was 1 year old the day I finished this mandolin. And I may have told this story, I think I have in another video, but I'll just repeat it real quick, as quick as I can. My uncle Don Brown of the Ozark Mountain Trio was my inspiration to get into bluegrass music. I had heard him play it my whole life, you know, and of course at the time I really got serious about it, I was about 29. But I had heard him play many times in my life and just really enjoyed it. And when I got serious about buying a new mandolin, he says, son, just go get you a Lloyd Loar mandolin. There ain't nothing else in the world. He says, I've tried all the handmade mandolins out there and all the store-bought mandolins. Ain't none of them any good. Now keep in mind, this was back in the early 80s. And, you know, the Alvarez mandolins that were around at that time were one of the few that you could get, and they just weren't very good, really. They sounded like a tin can with strings on them for the most part. Anyway, make a long story short, he said that's the mandolin to get. So I started calling all over the country looking for a Lloyd Loar Gibson mandolin, and I found one down at Gruen Guitar in Nashville. And I talked to George himself, George Gruen, and he wouldn't price the mandolin over the phone. He says, no, I won't price it over the phone. You'll have to come here and look at it. I said, all the way to, I'm in St. Louis, you know, and he wouldn't price it. So I drove all the way down there. You know, about a 6.5 hour drive or something like that. I can't remember now. I still remember the date inside the mandolin. November 28th, 1924. Signed by Lloyd Loar. Why do I remember that date? Because November 28th is my birthday. And at that time, Lloyd Loar Gibson mandolins were selling $6,000 to $8,000, $8,000 on the high side, you know. At least that's what my uncle was telling me, and he said I should be able to get one in that range. Well, he wanted $12,500 for it. And trust me, at that time, $8,000 was way overstretching it for me. I mean, that was a huge stretch. So I decided, you know, on that, you know, I decided I wasn't going to buy that mandolin because I just couldn't, even though it had my birthday in it, you know, and it was really my mandolin. I should have bought it, you know. And in hindsight, I wish I would have, but I didn't. So all the way back to St. Louis on that long drive, I was pouting the whole way with my tail between my legs and decided that I was going to build my own mandolin. Well, when I got back and told my uncle that, he more or less just laughed it off and said, son, there ain't no good handmade mandolins out there. He says, I played them all, there ain't no good ones. I said, well, okay, whatever. So you know, that I think even made me more determined. And so I bought the Roger Siminoff book, Read it cover to cover 8 times. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you I read it cover to cover 8 times. And I was in a carpool or van pool, and so I had a lot of time in that travel, an hour each way, and that's all I did in that van pool time. And on my lunch hour, that's all I did was just read that book. And so I really understood it well, and I didn't even have to refer to the book. I mean, I knew all the dimensions, I knew everything. I had it down, you know. And so then I went out and started buying my wood and built my mandolin, and I was totally obsessed. It took me just about exactly a month to build it, from start to finish. And I mean, every single waking moment I was working on it. I was like obsessed beyond anything you can understand, trust me. You know, I was working till 1 or 2 in the morning, getting up at 5 or 6 and going back to work and getting home at 6 or so in the evening and working on it till, 1 or 2 in the morning again. And I did that seriously almost every single day for a month. And on weekends all day long, Saturday, Sunday, just obsessed with going to build this mandolin. Well, after all that obsession, it didn't turn out that great in terms of looks, but it did turn out pretty good in terms of sound. So I was pretty happy with it, and I took it up. My uncle, I knew he was playing a show in Illinois, and that's quite a drive too. It was probably an hour and a half drive, maybe 2-hour drive. But I had to go show him, So I drove over there, and he had a crowd of people around him getting his autograph and different things, because he was pretty well known back in the 60s, 70s. Good friends with all the big stars. He knew all of them, and they all knew him. And, Doyle Lawson and Bill Monroe, of course, and the Osborne brothers, and, all of them, Jim and Jesse, all of them knew him really well. So anyway, I'm just trying to tell you the caliber of artist that he was, because he was very good. He was considered by many to be the father of bluegrass in Missouri. Because John Hartford and Norman Ford started the Ozark Mountain Trio in the early 50s. And John Hartford, as you know, went on to Gentle on My Mind fame with Glenn Campbell. That's another story I could tell you all day about. I waited in line to get up to talk to my uncle, as I was telling you. And when he grabbed the mandolin from me, he says, "Well, where'd you get that?" I said, "I made it." He says, "You made that?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, let me see it." And so he took it and he played it, and he played a few little tunes on it, and he monkeyed around with it. He probably had it in his hand a total of 2 minutes at the most. And he hands it right back to me. He says, "Well, you know what? It plays good. It's got a good sound, but it ain't got no chop." And he just handed it back to me. I just like, just sunk, tail between my legs, and I just walked off. Well, I just walked about 100 yards, and there was a group of friends playing and jamming, so I just kind of sat in with them and started jamming. Kind of kept my eye on my uncle the whole time, because he was still back over there with a crowd of people around him, and all at once, just kind of like John Wayne in the movies, he stands up straight and walks directly at me, that 100 yards, quite a long ways. Like I said, almost the length of a football field. And walks straight to me. He comes right up to me and he says, "Son, I was wrong about that mandolin." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, I just wanted to tell you." He says, "That thing has got one heck of a chop." He says, "I can hear that thing over everything around here." So that really changed everything for me. And then I was pretty proud of it then, And so I played it for a long time. And then, of course, you saw the second one I built. And mostly I built it to improve the looks, even though they weren't all that terribly much improved, but they were improved. And the second one was even better, really. I mean, it was even louder and clearer, I mean, this one's a great one, though. I mean, it really is a good mandolin. The strings on this have probably got to be 15 years old, and I'm not exaggerating. But anyway, I literally took lighter fluid and wiped these strings down just so to get some of the rust off of them. I'm not restringing them just to do this test. The only follow-up to the story is that years later, and just a short time before my uncle passed away, he told me, he says, "Son, if I wasn't playing that Lloyd Loar mandolin," and he had one of the best, let me tell you. I'm not just saying it because he's my uncle. Truly, he had a great Lloyd Loar mandolin. He says, if I wasn't playing that Lord mandolin, I'd be playing one of yours. He said, that's what and he said that, and he was serious. And he wasn't one to just say things. I mean, he told it like it was. So I was pretty proud of that, and proud of him telling me that. So let me play you this one now, and you'll get to hear the full circle here of where we come from. Yeah, you can tell it's got a really good sound. And I can even feel my pick dragging on these strings. That's how rusty they are. The pick was literally dragging on the strings. So, you know, you got to take that with a grain of salt too. It's really a good mandolin. And because it was built on my son's first birthday, of course, he owns it now, and I gave it to him. And I just went over to his house just a moment ago and borrowed it back. And it's just been hanging on the wall over there. It's just a wall hanger. Nobody plays it. So those strings are very old. I'm sure they're 15 years old, if not quite a bit older than that, possibly. One of the key differences in my building style here, you can see how this is almost perfectly straight across there, where now they have a nice curve to them there. And also here, and his body point here is missing. I just see one of his kids probably knocked that off. But anyway, I also build this and come back just a tiny bit like the lure does. And of course the whole body shape is exactly like the lure now, because I did take my uncle's lure apart and repair it for him, and that's what I build them off of now. So this was pre-lure, if you will, but it still has a very good sound, and I'm very, very proud of it, very happy with it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that comparison of all the Rosa mandolins and that little walk down memory lane with me, and hope you enjoyed that as well. If you're not presently subscribed to my videos, I would sure appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. You won't know anything more than you'll just start to see those as recommended videos in your YouTube viewing. And if you click the bell icon after you click the subscribe, then it will also notify you via email whenever I do put out a new video. And again, there's no charge for that. It won't cause you any hassle or problem. You can just delete the email if you don't want to see it. So it's just that simple. And as always, please click the thumbs up and crush a troll for me. I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.